Hi, my name's Dan Edwards, and thank you for joining my video today. I decided to put together this along with a few other videos after presenting about Power Automate and Dynamics 365 at some of the recent Dynamics 365 user conferences. Unfortunately, those sessions I was able to present were only about 50 minutes long, so by the time I covered my examples, I really wasn't able to show everything from beginning to end. So I'm hoping with this series of videos I'm putting together, I'll be able to go from beginning to end and give you a good example of how you could use Power Automate with your Dynamics 365 finance and supply chain. So in this first video today, we're going to start at the beginning working with the Dynamics 365 workflow and tying that in together with Power Automate. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to spend most of my time right inside of D365. So now that we're in D365, I'm going to kind of set up the scenario. So if I come over here and head out to my pending vendor invoices, I have invoices that have to go through a workflow process. So I have an invoice here, $19,999, and you can see that it is ready to be submitted to workflow. So just as a little reminder, I'm going to jump over to accounts payable workflows. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time today talking about the workflows, but let me just go ahead and bring over the workflow engine. And you'll see here the drag and drop built-in workflow engine that's part of D365. And this is where I can go in and choose my properties. And this is where I can put in my little work subject, and I can put who this is assigned to. So in this case, we'll see this is assigned to admin as well as Phyllis as my approver. I'm going to go ahead and add April to that as well. And you can put time limits. You can put the completion policy. So I'm going to say it's just a single approver. And now once I've done that, I can go ahead and save and close that. So there are other videos I'm sure available on Dynamics 365 workflow. So I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on that. But what I'm going to do is spend my time on how I can tie that workflow to what I have available with Power Automate. So let's go back to that vendor invoice. I'll jump back over here to pending vendor invoices. And what I want to do is, instead of just seeing this workflow come up here, so we can see here I have vendor invoices ready for approval. I see those on my task list, see those in various areas inside of D365. I really want to be able to see that inside of Teams or inside of Outlook per se, and be able to scroll back to that. So that's my business scenario. So what I'm going to do is I can launch into Power Automate right from inside of D365. So up here on the ribbon bar under Options, just simply go ahead and choose to create a flow. So now that I come in to create that flow, you'll see it actually took me to the templates section. And this is really where I want to start with this. So I'm going to actually use this template here, PU29, that is complete a Dynamics 365 Finance and Operation Workflow work items. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And what's nice is this template has really done all the work for me. So what I need to make sure I'm doing is, first of all, I'm connecting to all the appropriate connectors. So if you're not connecting, you're going to have to go ahead and choose your login and your connection from there. Since I've done this with other flows, I'm already connected. So I'm going to go ahead and simply say to continue. And now you'll see there's some blanks in this flow. So it wants to start with, first of all, what environment I'm using. So if you have a sandbox, if you have production, you're going to have to go ahead and make that selection. And then once I've chosen my instance, I need to choose what category I want to work with in there. So I want to go ahead and work with a workflow work item. So that's right here in the workflow work item. And then here you will see all the different workflows from the D365 workflow that you have set up. So I want to come down here. They're all in alphabetical order. So I'm scrolling all the way at the bottom because it's the vendor invoice workflow that I want to work with, and I want to approve that vendor invoice. And then which legal entity do I want to do this for? So I'm going to do this for USMF. Now, what's nice is I don't have to worry about getting all of this coding or JSON code because Microsoft provided all of that in the template. So now I just need to continue scrolling down because you're going to see there's a few other areas where we need to connect our instance of D365. So I did it here in the validate. And then this condition, this is setting up the approval of that workflow or the matching of that workflow. So if the output matches true, it's going to send over one direction. No, it sends over to the other direction. So now, again, if I continue to scroll down, we'll see here one more instance where I need to put in the D365 instance. And it brings in all of the different fields. So this is a really super easy workflow for us to set up. So I'm going to go ahead and save this now. It's going to take just a moment to save that. And so now that it's saved, I could actually rename this. So I'm just going to call this video example. So we'll see that in my flows. So now that it's saved, I'll come back over here and there's my flow. It lets me know the flow is ready to go. It's turned on. It hasn't been run yet. So now I'm going to come back to the tab for D365. And if everything works right, I should be able to come in here and submit. And please approve this invoice. So now, as we all know, it does take a moment for the workflow engine in D365 to run and actually send that on for submission. So we'll let that run for just a moment. And in the meantime, what I can do is if I can come back to the flow, this is something I like to point out about Power Automate, is you can monitor what's going on. So I can look at this flow and I've got my little refresh button here. So I can go ahead and continue to refresh this. We'll now see that the Power Automate flow is running. I'm going to go ahead and bring up Teams as April Stewart. So gone ahead and brought that over here in another browser. And you would see now that there is an approval that has popped up. It says action is needed for that invoice of $19,999. If I look at April's email, I'll also see that this email came in for that approval. Now, what's nice is you notice there's a link in the email and there is a link in the Teams approval. If I click on either one of those links, you'll notice it opens up the browser for me. It knows I'm April and it logs in and takes me right to that vendor invoice that's assigned to me. So April could do the review and all of that inside of D365. But April can also choose her response right from here and go ahead and approve and submit that approval from right inside of Teams. So that's very easy for the integration between the two. You notice I didn't have to do any coding. If I go back and look at this flow, so now you'll see as I refreshed inside of Power Automate that my flow has succeeded. So if I come back out here to vendor invoices, do a refresh again, go to that invoice, look at workflow, I can see the latest action was done by April Stewart. I can see her workflow history, and it's now moving on to the next step. I have some automatic posting set up, so it's going to go ahead and actually post this invoice as well. But we can see it was submitted by Dan, it was assigned to April, April took her action and approved it, and then it continues on with the rest of the workflow. So without any coding or anything other than using that template, I was able to integrate Power Automate and D365 Finance. So hopefully this video showed you how easy it is to create that workflow and tie Power Automate to the D365 workflow. Be sure to follow my blog or connect with me on LinkedIn. As I mentioned, I'm going to be posting a few more videos with some other examples on how we could use Power Automate. Thank you.